When you look at the Hollywood greats, I know it's lovely for me to share some of the stories that I've been lucky enough to be told by some of the wonderful Hollywood greats that I was lucky enough to meet. Debbie Reynolds, was one of those ladies that was just absolutely fascinating. I mean, being really there from the sort of studio system end right through to going through so many things, hasn't she? I mean, being a Las Vegas entertainer, had her own museum, but of course was known for the unsinkable Molly Brown and great movies like Singing in the Rain. One of her idols, though, was none other than another wonderful, superb dancer, that of Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. And once again, when I was looking back through some interviews the other day, you do kind of find these gems that you'd forgotten about the first time around. So I hope you don't mind if I share this particular story about the beautiful, talented Ginger Rogers with you. Hi, good morning. Neil Sean here. Nice to see you. Hope you're all keeping well. Yes, Ginger Rogers, according to Debbie, was a huge success over here in London at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. And this was in 1969, early 1970. She'd taken over the role, the Broadway version of Mame, and it came over in a huge fanfare of publicity. After all, this was a major Hollywood star. And it's fascinating to note, isn't it, that both Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly are currently having biographies made of their lives. And apparently they were kind of bitter rivals, as it were. I'm not quite sure about that. According to Debbie, they both played on this. Of course, she starred opposite Gene in Singing in the Rain and said he was a really tough taskmaster, but she learned so much. She was 18, 19 and was really struggling learning to dance. Can you imagine being taught to dance by Gene Kelly, though? One day on the set, along came Ginger Rogers. She said she was starstruck, couldn't believe it. This was someone that she'd admired for so many years, and Ginger was everything that you could imagine. Fast forward, though, a few years, Ginger Rogers, as I say, was now in London, still a big star, staying at the Dorchester, that blonde bouffant hair, the diamonds, the high kicks, everything that you could imagine. Impresario Bernard Delfont decided to put on Ginger at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, starring in Maine. But they hit the buffers quite quickly because Bernard was a bit of a taskmaster, and allegedly so was Ginger Rogers. Now, normally at the end of a run or a Christmas break or something like that, what happens is this in the world of theatre. If you're the star, and I find this fascinating, if you are the star of the show, you're supposed to gather gifts, whether it be a brooch, a pendant, perhaps an engraved pen with the title of the show and the year on, and you give it out to all the other cast members, perhaps certain people of the crew, particularly lighting, so it was vital, and sound. Now, this apparently was relayed to Ginger Rogers, who had a bit of a notoriously sort of, shall we say, don't mean to be unkind, but didn't like to spend money streak. You get the picture. So basically, she said, no, I'm not doing that. And so decided to buy a cake. This cake was duly wheeled onto the stage, and everybody was invited, according to Debbie, to take a slice of the cake. But there were so many in the cast, people ended up virtually just looking at the knife that the cake had been on to see exactly what the cake looked like, because she was so tight with it. Bernard stepped in and had to give gifts on her behalf. Again, Bernard wasn't used to snapping open his wallet either. But it's funny, isn't it, when you find these stories about people and you think, wow. But according to her, and this is the other side of the coin, of course, according to Ginger Rogers, she basically said, listen, my name's on the marquee. I'm filling this theatre. That was a bit debatable at the time too. But the other side of it was, she said, without me, these people wouldn't be employed. Why am I buying them a gift? They should be getting me one. It's going to be interesting to see if these particular stories do drop into the Ginger Rogers biog. After all, as I say, a superstar of an era starring opposite Fred Astaire in movies like Top Hat and The Gay Divorcee. But obviously, people remember the other side of the Hollywood studio system. As ever, I hope you don't mind me sharing these little gems of Hollywood stardust with you. Let me know what you think to this particular story in the comments below.